Friends, we'll be starting with a new series, Laws of Nature. This series will start with introduction and one chapter per recording we'll try to cover. Today we start with the introduction. Man prides himself on being a creature of reason, above the lowly beast. Yet it seems that when he applies his reason to unlocking the secrets of nature for his benefit, he sinks deeper and deeper into quagmire of intraceable problems. The internal combustion engine gets us where we are going faster, but also results in choking air pollution, the greenhouse effect, and a dangerous dependence on oil. Harnessing the atom gives us cheap energy, but also leads to weapons of mass destruction, Chernobyl, and a rising tide of dangerous radioactive waste. Modern agribusiness produces a dazzling variety and abundance of food at the supermarket, but also results in the death of the family farm, the pollution of ground water, the loss of precious topsoil, and many other problems. It's clear we are missing something in our attempts to harness the laws of nature for our own purposes. What is that something? We find out in the very first mantra of Upanishad, the foremost of ancient India's books of wisdom known as the Upanishads. Everything in the creation is owned and controlled by the Lord. One should therefore accept only things necessary for himself, which are set aside as his quota, and one should not accept other things knowing well to whom they belong. In nature, we see this principle at work. Nature's arrangement set up, the Lord maintains the birds and beasts, the elephant eats his 50 kilos per day, the ant has few grains. If man doesn't interfere, the nature balance sustains all creatures. Any agriculturalist will tell you Earth can produce enough food to feed 10 times the present human population. Yet political intrigues and wars, unfair distribution of land, and production of cash crops like tobacco, tea, and coffee instead of food, and erosion due to misuse ensure that millions go hungry even in wealthy countries like the United States. We must understand the laws of nature from the viewpoint of the Supreme Lord who has created these laws. In his eyes, all the earth's inhabitants, whether creatures of the land, water, or air, are his sons and daughters. Yet we, the human inhabitants, the most advanced of his creatures, treat these sons and daughters with great cruelty, from the practice of animal slaughter to the destruction of the rainforest. Is it a wonder that we suffer an unending series of natural disasters, wars, epidemics, famines, and the like? The source of our problem is a desire for sense gratification beyond the consideration of anyone else's right. These rights are the rights of the child in relation to the father. Every child has the right to share the wealth of his father. So creating a brotherhood of all creatures now depends on understanding the universal fatherhood of God. As we have seen, the Vedic literature declares that the Supreme Lord owns and controls the entire creation. Not a blade of grass moves without his sanction. He is the complete whole. Then what is our position? Again, we find the answer in the Vedic literature. Our natural constitutional role is to serve God. He is the supreme enjoyer, and we are meant to take part in his enjoyment through service to him, not by trying to enjoy separately. He is omnipotent and thus completely independent. Our minute independence is a tiny reflection of his total independence. It is our misuse of that minute independence and our attempt to enjoy separate from him that has resulted in our current predicament. Why do we misuse our independence? Because we are ignorant of our real nature. The first lesson of Vedic wisdom is that we are not bodies but rather spiritual souls, minute particles of consciousness dwelling within the body and animating it. Just as a car is a machine that allows a driver to travel from point A to point B, the body is a machine that allows the spirit soul to act and to experience sensations, thoughts within the Lord's material nature. When we understand our true identity as spiritual beings, part and parcel of the Supreme Spirit God, we understand we are meant to serve Him just as the hand or foot serves the whole body. Our problem, however, is that we forget our identity, separate from the body, and instead misidentifying ourselves with it. If a person happens to be born in America, he considers himself an American. If he is born in France, he considers himself a Frenchman, and so on. We also identify ourselves according to our race, creed, social status, etc. Plus, all these qualities apply only to the body, not the soul. Therefore, embracing them as our true identity causes us to forget the Lord and our relationship with Him, and to see ourselves as the independent enjoyers of His material nature. The Vedic literature explains that human activity, when devoid of service to the Lord, is governed by a subtle law known as law of karma. This is familiar law of action and reaction as it pertains to what we do in this world, and enjoyment or suffering we experience as a result. If I cause pain to other living being, then as surely as the wheels of life turns, I will be forced to suffer similar pain. If I bring happiness to another, like pleasure awaits me. At every second, with every breath, our activities in this material world cause, enjoyment, and suffering. To facilitate this endless actions and reactions, there has to be more than just one life. There has to be reincarnation. Until recently, the idea of reincarnation, while universally accepted in India and other Western countries, have found few adherents in the West. The Church banned the philosophy of reincarnation centuries ago. This is a long story dating as far as back in the history of the early Christian Church between 300 AD and 600 AD. Recounting this controversy is not within the scope of this course, but the denial of this important concept has left a void in the world view of the Western peoples. However, in the last decade, so many thinkers in the West have begun to take the idea of reincarnation seriously. For example, Dr. Michael Sabron of Embry University Medical School has written a book called Recollections of Death, a Medical Investigation 1982, which details a study confirming the out-of-the-body experience reported by cardiac arrest patients. Sabron writes, could the mind which splits apart from the physical brain be, in essence, the soul which constitutes to exist after the final body death, according to some religious doctrines? And Dr. Ian Silverstein, a psychiatrist at the University of Virginia, in his book 20 Cases Suggestive of Reincarnation 1996, has documented and verified past life memories in young children. Other studies using such methods as hypnotic regression indicate the idea of reincarnation may soon gain acceptance among mainstream scientists in the West. The Vedic literature makes reincarnation of the soul a central feature in the explanation of human destiny. The logic is obvious when we consider a simple question like the following: why is one child born to wealthy parents in the United States while other is born to starving peasants in Ethiopia? Only the doctrine of karma and reincarnation, reward and punishment carry over many lifetimes answer this question easily. The Laws of Nature and Infallible Justice has been compiled primarily from two sources. The first is the series of talks given on the Upanishad by His Divine Grace Bhaktivedanta Sri Prabhupada, the author, page 84. We'll discuss, delivered in Los Angeles in the spring of 1970. Then talks provide illuminating on how the universe really operates. The second source is Sri Prabhupada's commented translation of the Srimad Bhagavatam. From the third canto of his monumental work, we hereby produce chapter 30 titled Description by Lord Kapila of Adverse Fruitive Activities. In this section, we learn the fate of the sinful soul who transgresses the laws of God's nature and incurs punishment according to law of karma. In one of the Upanishad talks, Srila Prabhupada said, if you do good work, you will have so-called enjoyment in your next life, but you will remain bound in the cycle of birth and death. If you do bad work, then you will have to suffer the sinful reactions and also remain bound by birth and death. But if you work for Krishna, there are no such reactions, good or bad. At that time, you will return to Krishna. This is the only way to break the bounds of karma. And this is the only way for society as a whole to mitigate the suffering mentioned earlier. While we are in the world, there is no getting rid of the suffering. Altogether for us, as the Vedic teaching recognize this material order by nature a place of suffering. Ultimately, we are powerless in the midst of vast array of natural forces. The hope, therefore, is to follow and know and follow the will of the Supreme Lord, the Master of the nature. Only in His way can we transcend the laws of nature and the cycle of reincarnation and attain the perfection of life, love of God, and a place in His kingdom. Thank you so much.